And so rather than me describe these features to you, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring Ben and Jesse in because they've been using these features for quite a while now. And I'm going to start with with Secure Config. And this is actually a use case that Ben brought to us, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago. So Ben, I'm going to hand it over to you now. And if you would just sort of walk us through at a high level what this was all about.
Sure, no problem. That's a lot of good information. I'm glad I have all of it at my fingertips. So the use case that Amit is talking about that we run into is 4 or 5 months ago, we had a customer open up a remote location overseas, about 13 time zones ahead of us. So getting communication with people is kind of tough playing that phone tag. And they decided to bring in a couple extra laptops that we didn't get to pre-configure before they left here. Short notice, they told us, and I had one of my engineers working on it, doing all the new computer setups, and got to the point where they couldn't enable BitLocker. So after playing some phone tag and not having much luck of trying to walk someone through going in the BIOS and double checking things, we decided to check out FirmGuard, see if it was available, and sure enough it was. I worked with my engineer here, got the 2 laptops online, got FirmGuard installed, and utilized SecureConfig to simply check a box and enable TPM. From there, it was just a simple save, and the computer did the rest. It rebooted, came back up, and we walked through and enabled BitLocker.
Yeah, and I think if I recall when you and I talked, Ben, your tech at the time wasn't even aware of SecureConfig. I mean, obviously you knew quite a bit about it, and he sort of was lamenting, "Oh, what are we going to do? This is going to be painful because this is a client, I think you said in Asia, right?"
Yeah.
And I think he was relieved when he talked to you. I remember you telling me the story. He was relieved when he talked to you, and you're like, "You know what? I think I got a simple way to do this. We don't have to get this particular client online."
Yeah, because they were trying for a while to get in touch with their IT guy over there to get access to the machine, and crossing their fingers that they could walk him through this process of booting into the BIOS.
Yeah, I think it was either you or Leo that told me that secure config might not be something you use on a daily basis, but when you need it, you really need it.
Yeah, and in this time it saved us. It saved us a lot of time, a lot of heartache going back and forth. Yeah.
All right, Jesse, let me bring you in on the conversation too with secure config, because you and I were chatting, I think it was just a couple of days ago, and you brought up something very interesting that, to be honest with you, I hadn't even really thought of. So, I think of secure config, and the way we position it is as a mechanism, as Ben talked about, to be able to go in and change BIOS settings, right? Like, yeah. But relate to me, if you will. You were telling me that you've actually started using secure config as a mechanism to actually learn about the capabilities of the endpoints that you have in your pool, which I thought was very interesting. And I think there was one very specific feature that you saw on some Lenovo laptops. If I'm getting it right, was it bottom cover tamper detection, I think?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So FirmGuard is really cool simply because it kind of standardizes the settings panel that you would see that would be completely different on 2 different models of computer, or even 2 different manufacturers. So you kind of get used to the interface and the drop downs, and it's all familiar to you. So it makes it really easy to poke through and just assess what your computers can do. And oftentimes I find myself saying the words, "I did not know that was an option," because if I had known, it would have been turned on already, because that's kind of a cool feature. So when I was poking through the computers at this one specific client that has Lenovo's across the board, ThinkPads and desktops, I managed to see a checkbox, just a simple checkbox that said bottom cover tamper protection. And basically what that does is, should somebody take the bottom panel off, unscrew it, put it back on, the next time it boots up, it's going to require the BIOS super admin password. So basically, the
Right.
password specifically for the BIOS settings, it'll require that on boot, and it won't let it get past BIOS into the regular operating system or whatever operating system might have been put into the machine after the tampering was done, swapping out the hard drive or whatever.
Right.
And had I not had SecureConfig, I probably would have never found that setting, simply because how else would I have stumbled upon it if it wasn't available plain text and a simple, easy to use interface that's right in front of me and readily accessible, right?
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think you just saw it as you were going through Secure Config, and you didn't even really, you never heard of this before, and you just Googled it, right, to see, well, what is this?
Right, because it requires that the machine has a actual physical switch in the cover, so that should somebody take it off, it flips a switch and changes a 1 to a 0, and the next time it boots up, it'll sound the alarm, right? So because it's a physical hardware matter and not just a software matter, I don't know how else I would have discovered that had I not found it in FirmGuard or gone and looked up the I don't know, the model number of that specific laptop and found, oh, there it is in the feature list,
Yeah, and this is interesting because I think the way you were describing this to me, you get a new client, and you don't necessarily dictate what kind of endpoints they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just come to you and say, okay, we got these 25 endpoints, and they might be HP, Dell, Lenovo, different models, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine a lot of the MSPs are in that same situation, where they've inherited, so to speak, these, let's say, 25 endpoints. They don't know what the hardware capabilities are of them. And I think you're pointing out that by using Secure Config, you can go in and you can actually see, oh, on this particular endpoint, it's got this capabilities. This one's got that capability. That's, I think, what you were getting at, right, with this sort of
Right. Should a client come to me and say, hey, we've got 3 HPs, a Dell and a Lenovo. They're not all laptops and they're not all desktops. Some of them I think have fingerprint sensors, and I'd like to make that a across the board a required thing. If you've got a fingerprint sensor, I want you to use it. I don't know if I'd be able to figure that out just with my RMM, and I might just have to sit there and copy paste model numbers into Google and look at hardware specs to figure out if they've got fingerprint sensors. If I just have SecureConfig or FirmGuard installed and I pop up SecureConfig, I can click a few drop downs and find out, yes, this one does and that one doesn't, and I'm flip the switch right now, turn it on, right?
All right. Well, fantastic. No, I'm glad we chatted about that the other day.